In this video, we're going to look at establishing some basic lighting for this gallery space that I've modeled in SketchUp Pro 2022. The model is essentially a closed box except for two apertures where there will be windows. And if I look at the inside of the model, let's see, it has a profile for the ceiling that is essentially this shape that has been swept using the Follow Me tool. So if we look at the inside of it here, I have this profile that's wrapping all the way around the ceiling. And then I've also taken a small circle and done a Follow Me wrapping around the ceiling as well. So if we look at this, I have this piece of geometry that I'm going to use to help light this cove light for the scene. And I have some saved scenes. I'm going to return to this scene, which is head on into the window wall. And I'm going to look at the shadows, and let's just turn on the shadows and look for a time of day that is going to be casting some light in from the outside onto the floor, onto the wall. Let's look at our render settings. We have our global illumination turned on, and let's go ahead and set it down to a low quality. On our camera output, 800 by 450, default exposure setting. Let's see what we get. So we're able to see some nice light coming in from the outside, reflecting up off of the floor. Of course, the scene is very noisy at this low level of detail, or low level of sampling, I should say. I think I want to get a little more sunlight out of this. I'm going to try to squeeze some more out. So I'm going to lower my exposure value. And that, I think, is a bit excessive. For my taste, I'm going to go back to 12.5. By keeping this quality slider at a low level and my resolution at a small resolution, I can quickly iterate and kind of find a schema of lighting coming from the sunlight that I'm comfortable with and camera exposure. What I'm going to do now is isolate my crown light that I have. So I'm going to select that entire crown light. It is in a component. I'm going to open that component, and I'm going to make, I have here an emissive material that I created under Materials Emissive. I'm going to apply that to my selection, and the emissive material has a color and an intensity. And if I were to say, set that to intensity of 1, and I'm going to set just a slightly warm incandescent color, return to my scene, that emissive light is going to add some light out from that object, kind of turn that object into a light source. And I'm going to move to the second scene. Let's go in even a little closer, something like that, and render. So this is that object piece of geometry with the emissive light. However, or the emissive, material. However, a value of 1 is creating only a little bit of light up in this immediate cove area, and I really want it to spill over into the larger scene. So let me return to this lower view and set my emissive. Let's go higher. Let's go up to 25. That's a little too high. It's pushing so much light into my scene that I'm not able to appreciate where it's coming from directionally. So I'm going to set that value to 7. Oh, I'm pleased with that. That's starting to get some light up into the cove and then down into the rest of the room. I'm going to return to my wider scene, and I have a feeling I'm going to eventually want to go just a touch higher. and a touch more warm with my tone. And now you can see I'm beginning to get that cove light wrapping all the way around my scene. So now I have a combination of light coming in from my sky outside and cove light that's going to light the scene up. And let's take a look at what this looks like under some slightly higher settings. Let's go up to medium, and I'm going to double my resolution. Because of the medium render settings, it's going to take longer to resolve to a final image. But as I have a larger resolution, I can also zoom in and get a feel for how this is turning out at full resolution in my scene. And in fact, if I wanted to develop just a sub portion of this image, I could turn on my render region, and I could click, render region, and let's render just that region like so. This is going to focus my rendering power only on that one area, so I'll be able to get a result at a larger resolution out in a shorter period of time. I'm going to adjust my render settings. Even though the image is finishing at this quality, I'm going to adjust these settings a little bit to get rid of some of that noise. Going to lower the noise limit and increase my max subdivisions, meaning by lowering the limit of noise, this is the allowable limit of noise. So the smaller this number gets, the longer my renders are going to try to resolve. They're going to try to reach a relatively noiseless condition. If this number were to go higher, let's say 0.1, then I'll be tolerant of more noise. So lower number is the higher the quality. And by increasing these subdivisions, I'm going to allow the render to take longer to achieve, to reach the state where this noiseless state is reached. So now when I click render, notice only within the render region is it resolving. And it's taking a little bit longer. It's achieving a slightly less noisy result. I could push that further if I wanted, but I'm feeling pretty good about this combination of my cove light and of my natural sunlight coming in. And in future videos, we'll move on to adding some more detail to the model, like windows, and some materiality into the ceiling and the floor and the walls.